Welcome, everybody, to another edition of OnPrem Pros. This is an exciting one. We are going to be talking to people, two of our guests from a customer, Smart Communications. We're going to talk to them about Proxmox and Ceph, kind of how they made the decision to go with that technology, and now that they're live, lessons learned, kind of some crazy testing stories. So I had fun talking to these guys ahead of time. So I hope you guys enjoy everything we have to talk about today. And joining me as is most often, I shouldn't say always, but most often, I have some of my partners in crime, Tyler Young and Josh Moss. Josh Moss, it's easy for him to say, but two of our solutions architects from xByte Technologies. Guys, welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be
Thanks,
here again.
sir.
And then, as I mentioned, from Smart Communications, I have Nicholas Coker and Justin Payne. Guys, welcome and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
So I mentioned in the little intro right there, Proxmox and Ceph, and so we've talked to people about other virtualization platforms. We really wanted to kind of hear this story. So how long ago was it when you made the decision, or when you started to make the decision?
I started about 3 years ago with another guy on my team to create a systems operations team to maintain and monitor all of our systems. And our boss, Justin, at the time was getting concerned about our AWS costs. I believe back then we were paying about $3,000 a month for S3. Now I think it's getting close to about $30,000 a month. So we wanted to find a way to not spend that much money on S3, to find a way to purchase the hardware ourselves and manage it ourselves, and store all that data in Ceph. So most of the initial research as to why we chose the systems that we did was my team member was the one that researched that. So I don't have a lot of information on that, but I do remember back then we were playing with Rancher and some different things, and we ended up going with Proxmox. Sometimes we would install Proxmox directly on the server. Sometimes it would be installed on top of something else. But since then, we've changed over to just installing Proxmox directly on the hardware. Yeah, so that's what made us decide to start looking into it. Mostly trying to do cost savings.
Yeah, 30,000 is a major bill per month, so I can see why you'd want to go with something else. And now, do you recall? I mean, did you guys have an affinity to open source, or did you guys just look at the bill from VMware and say, "Hey, this is already high," even before the Broadcom acquisition?
Yeah, I know in general we do like to do open source whenever it's a good solution. We do some stuff or work with some systems that aren't open source, but we can or we do when we can.
And why is that? Because I know other people may have some of the same decisions, and they have different reasons why.
I don't know. What are our reasons why, other than cost savings is one. That's probably the main one. I don't know.
Yeah, some people like to always give back to that community, and other people it is cost savings. Where they're like, look, it's going to cost us the same for people to run a more closed source commercial product as the open source, so you might as well save that, or the incremental cost to have to kind of self-support some areas. It's not as high as the cost for the actual more commercial product.
Yeah, the other thing that I know Justin's preference is to be able to maintain the systems ourselves, as opposed to relying on something like AWS, where if AWS goes down, there's not really anything we can do about it. And we pretty much have to tell our customers, like, there's nothing we can do with their systems down, and we don't like to do that. We found that it just, our customers are happier, and we're happier when, if there's an issue on our system, then we can solve it. So we generally go in that direction.
Okay, that makes sense. I think the reason why a lot of people go on-prem for that as well, because they like to be able to kind of physically touch it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that one of the moves from like your mail server being in-house to being in Office 365 out there is whenever it goes down, you're like, okay, Microsoft, can you fix things?
Yeah.
So luckily, it didn't happen all the time, but I know when it does happen, we've had the discussions like, do we make a good decision to give our power to Microsoft for email, or should we kind of do that in-house? But it's still not cost effective to do it in-house. Actually, do you guys do mail servers in-house, or do you guys do like a?
No, we have APIs. We use
Okay.
third parties for that.
All right, so you guys are looking at open source stuff, and you said it's big cost savings to go with this, and it definitely is. I mean, we've talked to people, and it really comes down to can you support it themselves? And Tyler, I'll throw something to you and Josh from the xByte technology side. Is when you talk to customers and they're comparing like an open source like a Proxmox or Ceph and a VMware or any of the Hyper-V out there. Why did they make the decision to kind of go with those from what you guys have seen?
Yeah. So, and just to be clear, you're asking why customers are wanting to go with non-Ceph, non.
Yeah, or like a V. Yeah, why did they make a decision to go with more of a commercial product than something open source?
Yeah. So, I mean, the two biggest pushbacks I've gotten from customer is either just they're not as familiar with the open source environments or options out there, but also another thing is and that I guess leads to them thinking that it's not as good of a product, right? If you talk to somebody, oh, it's not an officially supported or anything, or that's a big concern for them, especially running any sort of production environments. And that leads me to the other thing, which is customers a lot of times when they're running a mission critical environment, and they if something goes wrong and they have higher ups down their backs yelling at them, hey, we need to get back online, we're losing money, right? They want to have something reliable to go to for support, right? They don't want to have to just, oh well, I'm searching forums and looking for answers or whatnot, right? So that's puts a lot more pressure and stress on them. And I mean, let's be honest, I mean, anybody in the engineering sysadmin role has a lot on their plates already, more than anybody wants to give credit to, if we're being honest. So it's just something that to add that additional stress, they like to have that cushion of that safety net there. So that's what I've been hearing. So that's actually one question I was gonna ask you guys was, based on that, like, are the customers hesitant to make that leap? I mean, is there anything that you guys would say to them? I mean, or that would reassure them with based on your experience so far with Ceph, with Proxmox, just in the open source ecosystem?
So there's definitely some challenges with Proxmox. I mean, I'm sure you could go with, vSphere, or there's so many other choices. Proxmox being open source, it's very, very easy to get into. So, not everybody needs or is going to go and build a 17 node cluster, or I think we're actually at 18 nodes now. So I would consider that to be, a larger cluster, but, for a smaller business, I think 3 nodes, that's a pretty easy setup. I mean, you can get that done in a day, So, and if you're not worried about Ceph, and you're just going to be, doing virtualization, it's a pretty solid way to go. I mean, your setup time, you probably have 2 to 3 hours in a 3 node cluster.
Wow.
So
for people listening, I guess we should have done this in the beginning. Is talk about what Proxmox, because I bundled the two together, but they are independent. One's your hypervisor versus your kind of your virtual SAN, your hyperconverged. So what was harder? It sounds like the Proxmox was pretty easy, and you mentioned that adding Ceph added a lot of complexities. So,
just yes.
So why is that? Is that because of the complexities with hyperconverged, or is it Ceph in general?
I'm going to say Ceph in general, but also the networking behind it. So, we're dealing with 4 separate 10 gig links per node. So for Ceph. So we've got 2 separate networks. You have a copper network, which is going to run CoroSync and all that for Proxmox. And you've got your redundancy with that. And then you've got your Ceph public and your Ceph private networks. And so what you end up with is six connections per node, 4 of them fiber, 2 of them copper. So, and now times 18. So
now, is that standard then for anyone running stuff? Is they're going to be doing something?
I mean, you don't have to do it that way, but if you want redundancy in your network,
okay,
right. Yeah. Should be, yeah. And
it should be.
It should be.
If you guys could go back, right, when you guys made the decision to go down the rabbit hole of Proxmox and Ceph, and you could tell yourselves then what you know now, anything, super helpful advice that you guys could go back and say, hey, I wish I would have known this, or even, is there anything you're like, hey, don't do this, right? Like, would you guys go down that rabbit hole again if you guys go back, or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if I had to go back specifically with networking, we weren't sure when we started how Ceph was going to react to 10 gigs. So we have several servers that are just full of SSDs, for example. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that, if 30 SSDs could communicate over 10 gig without an issue. Mm-hmm. So, I didn't know if that was enough bandwidth. Had I known that it was enough bandwidth, honestly, a lot of this network would probably be copper. I probably would have avoided a lot of the fiber. Oh. And that's mainly just because that's where we've seen a lot of issues. But yeah, if I could go back, I would definitely do that different. Also, some of those choices, we didn't get to make a lot of those choices. A lot of like Nicholas had said earlier, a lot of the hardware was already picked and already purchased. So some of this is we had to work with what
you're making it fit, basically.
Correct.
Yeah, that can also kind of, I guess, lead you guys into some annoyances too, right? Like, even just something as silly as if, say, that platform only supports 10 gig, and you're like, oh, instead of doing all these 10 gig links to get us to the throughput that we want, right? Now, if only this would have supported, say, 25 gig or 100 gig, and we could just went with that.
I literally say it all the time. I say it all the time. I'm like, maybe this should have just been 25 gig, or maybe we should have just gone bigger.
Right. Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And like I said, it's something that I think, and I think, and to be fair too, right? Just because, I don't want anybody watching this think, oh, it's just like don't do, Ceph or Proxmox, but anytime you go into any sort of platform, whether you're talking even in this industry or something different, there's always a learning curve, right? It's not like it's just, anything, that you just do is new is just gonna be easy to grasp. So, I mean, even for customers who are going from Hyper-V to VMware or VMware to Hyper-V or anything, right? There's always going to be that learning curve. So like I said, it's just something that, if in the long run, I think if there's more pros than cons in the long run, right? Especially it's going to save money, right? I mean, save you guys $30,000 a month or anything like that, right? It's definitely something that, what's my time worth in the short term to kind of, reap the benefits in the long run. So.
Yeah, and question for you guys, and Charlie, you brought this up earlier, is on the support side. Do you guys completely self-support, or I know there's at least a year ago there was talks about some of the I think it was Proxmox starting to offer some support packages.
They do offer support packages, but right now we're pretty self-reliant.
We did get some help from 45 drives though. So after we thought we had everything set up correctly, we worked with them to review our setup and make sure that everything that we did was correct. Just can talk about that more, but real quick, I would like to step back on that last question regarding some of the things that I would tell myself to do differently. There are some of the biggest challenges that I've seen with Proxmox. Disk I/O is probably the biggest bottleneck that we've come across. So whatever server you have, max that thing out with as many drives as you can. Make sure you're not using RAID. Do all that through Proxmox. We use ZFS. The ZFS RAID depends on the server. We configure it in different ways. The other thing is some of the disk caching settings in Proxmox. You'll want to tweak those. And then we've even seen different issues. We tried testing a lot of the different bond methods for the network interfaces, where so some of the things that we in our stacks, we always try and make everything redundant. So we have 2 firewalls, 2 switches, multiple servers. So if something goes down, it'll continue to work through some other path, and then we can go fix whatever problem there is without having any downtime. We haven't got this set up quite yet, but we're very close to. We do have a stack on the West Coast and one on the East Coast, and we ordered a 100 gig pipe between the two. So we're looking forward to using that to sync the 2 stacks. But yeah, so those are some of the things that I would definitely tell myself. I'd probably give myself a list of here are the best settings to use, just to try and help with that. But going through that process has also helped. So now we know, okay, this one fell on its face, or this one seemed to work for a day and then would just crash, and we're like, what in the heck is going on? So yeah, so those are some of those things. And then yeah, Justin, I don't know if you want to talk about 45 drives at all as far as them helping us.
Sure. We wanted a sanity check, right? Mm-hmm. So we had them come in and just take a look and make sure that, as Nicholas said, that everything was done correctly. And
the 45 drives, they're a Ceph partner, or?
I believe they are a Ceph partner, yeah.
Okay.
But in the storage space, I mean, they're huge. So Proxmox, Ceph, custom chassis, like they've been big into that space for a long time. So I felt pretty confident in going with them to just have a look and make sure that everything was set up correctly. And then just some basic tuning for crush maps for Ceph and stuff like that as well. So
yeah, no, that's pretty sweet there. Nicholas, something I want to pause on for a second is you went into the IO and the workloads. I know every workload is different, and I know I'm not asking you guys to go too deep into any sort of proprietary or anything like that, but just in general, what kind of workloads are you guys running in your Proxmox environment, your Ceph environment? You guys, is it a lot of databases? Is it machine, like what kind of workloads are you guys running in there?
All kinds of stuff. But yeah, databases so far have seemed to be the biggest issue. Mm-hmm. So we run Zabbix for monitoring, as well as some other stuff, but Zabbix has struggled with disk IO and the server that we have it on. It is a single VM on that node, so there's nothing else, like it's maxing out that hardware. So at this point, we might need to get some bigger hardware or find another solution. We have been talking about possibly switching over to Postgres or something for the database. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so far, I'd say the database servers are the ones that struggle the most. Or if so if we're moving a large amount of data between nodes, that can also just eat up the disk IO, and then the VMs won't perform as well. It hasn't been a major issue. Which, like I said, it's mostly just with servers that have databases on them.
Yeah.
So like Zabbix is running, I think, on a 630, whereas so going back a little bit as far as when we started this whole process. So the other guy on my team was in charge of building out this stack, and while he was doing that, maybe a year in or so, I was asked to sort of make like a mini stack as kind of a quick fix for some of the things that we needed while he was figuring out, this entire thing with Ceph and everything. So I made what we call, it's like a utility stack. It's 5. It was originally 5 servers and then 6. I think they're all 630s, R630 Dell PowerEdge. And they were just basic Proxmox cluster. I set it up without knowing that much about Proxmox. It's pretty easy. There are some things that I did wrong that we later fixed just to get better performance out of it.
Yeah, some fine tuning.
But Zabbix is running in that stack, and so it's I think struggling a little bit. Whereas the other stacks we've been talking about are the ones where it's like 18 servers, and they were built out where we'll have 5 R630s, and their purpose is for X, and then we've got some like 730s that have is that 24 drives in them, I think. So those were geared more towards being database servers. So it might be something that where we need to move Zabbix to a more powerful server that's built more for that. So so there are ways to get around those disk IO bottlenecks, but that seems to be the biggest problem. Like everything else, CPU, RAM, bandwidth, like most of that, as far as I've seen, has been fine. Justin's probably seen some bandwidth issues, but he's the one working in Ceph. I don't really touch Ceph much at all yet.
Well, something to highlight. I mean, you guys are running a pretty. I mean, we talked about earlier. You're running a pretty large stack already, and your workload isn't something that's just like a couple domain controls in it. So you guys are running a pretty solid workload as well. And this is on hardware that is no disrespect to your environment, but it's pretty old hardware. I mean, 13th gen PowerEdge is what 4 generations behind from what the latest and greatest is right now. So the fact that you're doing all of that on that hardware, and again, huge highlight to the fact that that's not hardware that you got with the intended purpose of Proxmox and Ceph, but it's stuff that you kind of, hey, we have this, we're going to repurpose it, make it work, and just kind of work with what we got. And it's pretty incredible. It's what you guys have done with this, and it's for people watching at home, it's something that I always hear from customers. Ceph is new or Proxmox is new, and in reality, it's been around for 15, 20 years. I may be new to a lot of customers now because they're kind of being forced down into looking for other things because of what's going on out in the virtualization space right now. But I mean, for a lot of people, this is something that has been going on for a long time, and it's just goes to show, just based on you guys' environment and running what you guys are running it on. I mean, like I said, it's pretty powerful. So I mean, I'm excited to see, again, just you guys continue to scale, and even down the road too, and you guys look to refresh with newer hardware. I mean, with the cost of NVMe's nowadays, I mean, just what your workload's going to be able to be consolidated down, to on newer hardware and faster NVMe's and whatnot, just what can be done. So no, super exciting stuff. So thanks for that.
Yeah, even with 14th gen, and I know you guys have a couple 14th gen, like the R640s or 740s. I know they got into NVMe's, like from the starting of it. So if you guys haven't looked at it, it's something for you guys to look at is the NVMe's for some IO.
So as a company, we use a lot of R630s, both on client prem and within our stacks. So we did have a lot of those kind of spares that we threw together, that utility stack. But the other stack, we had designed it initially 3 years ago, and it took about a year to probably buy a lot of that hardware. So at this point, like there are servers in that stack where it's like we have some 430s that were going to be for a certain purpose, but at this point, like I'd rather just swap those out with 640s, and I think at the beginning they overthought a little bit of like the various hardware, like, oh, we should get these servers for this, these servers for that. It's useful for some things like the database, like using a 700 series. But I think we overdid it with, like, we have 330s and 430s and 630s and 730s, and that was kind of overkill. I think I would prefer to just have a big stack of like 640s, 8 of them, and then it makes it easier to move VMs around. So we haven't gotten into that at all yet, but you can do high availability and migrating VMs from one node to another, and there's practically no downtime. Like we'll move a VM and nobody notices a thing. It might flicker for like a second. It's pretty awesome.
If you guys do want to get into anything where you want to just borrow servers for a little bit, let us know. we can do something where we put something together and allow you to kind of benchmark test. We could even there you go, put it on there.
Shopping
but
list.
yeah, then you guys could like benchmark if you wanted to test out NVMEs or something. We could loan those to you for a month and be able to kind of do some testing.
Yeah, so we have this other
And then just
stack.
leave them in place and just buy them from us. That's kind of
We have another a totally different type of stack that we run. I think it's 5 Windows servers on. That they're just on metal, but we're looking at virtualizing that too with Proxmox. And yeah, we've spec'd it out more with 640s and using NVMe. We haven't purchased that yet, but I'm hoping to get that going so that we can really see what that looks like.
Nice. We had talked a little bit pre-show about this, and I think it's important for people because the one of the fears of the open source out there. I shouldn't say just Proxmox and Ceph, but but really around those two because they're more of the popularity right now. But their fears, hey, if something goes wrong, how do I fix it? Because there's not that public. The amount of people talking about it in public forums is not close to what's out there for VMware. That people talk about the problems they have. So, and these are some fun stories. I want to hear these stories too. But how did you guys go about testing when things go wrong? I don't want to steal the energy because you hinted about some fun stories. But tell us how you guys sabotaged your network, and then what you guys did to try and recover.
So we sabotaged it several ways. First set of testing we did was just sabotaging the network to see what would happen to Ceph, and we broke it. We broke it fairly easily, and that was just shutting some servers off, pulling some network adapters, trying to power everything back up, and seeing what happens. And what happened was it didn't come back. So. But through that experience, we figured out a little bit about Ceph monitors and managers, and how many should be ran, and what's the minimum that can be running for those services for Ceph to be able to stabilize itself and recover. The other thing we did, just in general, pulling power adapters, pulling power cords directly out of servers. Seeing how many servers could go down before Ceph and Proxmox wouldn't recover. Learning about HA states. So we group our services on the server. So the 430s, you're going to have one group for the 430s, one for the 630s, one for the 730s. And when you're running HA, you have to have a certain amount of failure tolerance or whatever in your servers so that VMs will move like they're supposed to. So via HA and replication and just kind of going through that process, we were able to figure out, how many servers can go offline, how many Ceph, the QCTs, Ceph servers could go offline, and without losing data. And yeah, it's an interesting experience. We definitely learned a lot. And figured out what it actually takes to keep a Ceph cluster online, which is it's not easy. It's not an easy task. So
yeah, kind of keeping it in the same vein. Whenever it came to looking at backup strategies and such with Proxmox, whether augmenting existing backup strategies or developing new ones, did you run into any specific challenges or anything cool?
Proxmox backup server, which I think a lot of people overlook, and we do run. It's probably the easiest. I mean, that's the easiest solution if you're running Proxmox. Just Proxmox backup server. So, yeah, it definitely simplifies the process, and it makes life a lot easier. HA is not a backup. So
absolutely,
a lot of people
say it louder for the people in the back.
Come on, we're gonna isolate this.
And also, while we're on this topic, RAID is not a backup as well for those listening.
RAID is not a backup. No, it's not. True. So yeah, Proxmox backup server is an easy solution. It's easy to set up. And yeah, we, in between HA, some of the servers where we're just running replication, and Proxmox backup server, we pretty much have all of our bases covered there.
Does the backup server then back up to the cloud, or how are you handling
in our case, it's eventually going to back up to Ceph.
Okay.
So, but it can back up to the cloud. Yeah.
And then for replication, you'll have, say, a VM, or all of our VMs we replicate to at least one other server. And if the server that's running on ever goes down, Proxmox will automatically switch over to using that same VM on a different node with basically no downtime, as long as you have it set up correctly. And then, Justin, can you also talk about the different ways of how we have Ceph set up as far as like erasure and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So when you're running Ceph, you've got your standard RBD storage. So that's just standard replication. So and then you've got let's see, we got replication, and then you've got erasure coded. So our large pool. So all of we call it our spinning Rust, and it's 16 terabyte drives. So that pool is erasure coded. That's obviously so we can get the most storage for the money. So that's that particular pool is just under a petabyte. So and it's got about 650 to 660 usable. So that the erasure coding we use on that is pretty important, just so we can get the max amount of storage for the money. The other pool that we use is our SSD pool, and our SSD pool, for performance, you don't necessarily want to use erasure coding. So 3-by replication is generally a better way to do that. So that's the way we went with that.
So as you guys are having fun pulling the network cables and pulling power cords, and you mentioned you pulled one, I think this made it a pre-show, you mentioned you pulled one server and the other one was fine. You pulled a second server and it went down. And I'm sure there are error codes that popped up when you guys did all this. Was it just you guys tried a bunch of things to find the answer, or how did you guys find your answers?
Yeah, on that one, we just wanted to see what happens, and so we had pulled. So for the QCTs that run Ceph, I think Justin was in the office and I was there at the data center, and just I don't remember if I pulled the power on it, or I think I did, maybe the network interface, but killed one, and it was totally fine. Plugged that one back in, and then pulled 2 different ones out of, I think, 5 that we have there in a cluster. And then, it totally fell on its face, but some of that was because we didn't know what to do in that situation, to where, Justin could probably answer this better, but I believe it was we didn't have enough monitors in place. And when that happened, we hopped in to try to fix things manually when we probably should have just left it alone. And I think it would have fixed itself. But Justin, if you want to.
Yeah, we would have been fine had we just, honestly, if we would have just shut down the Ceph portion of the cluster and just restarted it, it would have came back up. But we didn't know that. So, we're trying to add monitors on the fly when we didn't we didn't need to do that. We could have just let it come back up on its own. It would have been fine, and then we could have fixed the issue from there. But ended up making it a little bit worse, trial and error. And then
did you guys go to forums out there, or are there other people having the same issues that you can
you've got the Proxmox forums, of course, and yes, there's tons of information in there. Between that, Reddit, Google in general, wherever you got to get the information from, we just go find it.
Have you guys tried ChatGPT? how bad is it hallucinating?
I don't know if I want to answer that question.
I don't know if it's I know they updated it recently, but I know in the past documentation was a challenge. So I don't know if that's gotten better. Justin, have you gone through that recent update they did?
I haven't been totally through it, but there was a pretty massive update as far as Ceph goes. Yeah, they just did a massive update. So,
and documentation is hard to come by. So
it's easier now. It's easier now.
Oh, it is better now. Okay, that's good to hear. I know a lot of people we talked about that their fear is that there's the documentation or there's not people talking about it. But if you're saying that the forums are great, there's a lot of chatter. I think that'll make people feel a little bit easier that they can go find information.
Yeah, and we found that at least in the last few years, like you said, it's better now. But you would find solutions that people would document, and we would try them, and parts of them would work. So we would like kind of use a little bit from here and a little bit from somewhere else, and kind of make our own documentation internally of how we found it worked on our system. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge that you'll have to overcome.
So you said Reddit. Are there actual Ceph forums that Ceph hosts themselves? Is that correct?
Ceph has an entire, pretty much a wiki, I believe. I could double check that, but the issue with that is it hadn't been updated for a long time. So,
yeah, that's no good.
There's also, Justin, could you talk on this on like installing Ceph the various ways? I know we tried it, or at least you tried it 2 different ways. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm trying to remember.
One was with and one was after drinking alcohol.
Just one, I believe, was installed on top of Proxmox, and the other one wasn't.
Yeah, so our first cluster we actually didn't install, and that was done by a previous coworker, the same person that Nicholas was talking about earlier. And that original setup, he was running Ceph standalone, so he wasn't. Proxmox runs Ceph in a wrapper, so it's not the same as installing Ceph, just on like an Ubuntu-based system or a Debian-based system. So there's slight differences there in how the implementation works with Proxmox. So originally he had it separated. I said, you know what, this is going to be a crazy big cluster. Let's not overcomplicate this. It would just be easier if Proxmox was like the primary hypervisor on everything. And then we get full visibility in one place, for the entire stack. And we don't have to deal with, these five QCTs with all these hard drives, running a completely different software and, just making it more confusing for ourselves. So I will say that it's probably, if you were just going to run Ceph on its own, take Proxmox out of the equation, it's probably easier to just run it standalone. And because a lot of the documentation that they do have is geared towards that. So, it's a little bit harder to figure out, what commands do what, if you're running it in Proxmox. It's not exactly the same, if that makes any sense.
So how does that work? And so I'm coming about this I'm a little technical. I'm probably the least technical of the people on this show right now. But how does Ceph run standalone? Doesn't it require a hypervisor for?
It doesn't require. When I say standalone, I just mean bare metal, no hypervisor. So you would just be running, Debian or Ubuntu or whatever your favorite distro is, and then you would be running just Ceph on top of that. So there's big differences though between that and running it in Proxmox, which runs Ceph in a wrapper. So and there's commands, etc., that don't work both places. If that makes any sense. So you might be trying to, for example, you might need a Rados gateway for S3 access to Ceph. That was a challenge for me because a lot of the directions that are out there are simple and they're easy to follow, but because we were running Proxmox as the hypervisor and Ceph on top, a lot of those commands were completely different. And configuration files, for example, are in different places. So, normally you would see, Etsy, Ceph, and then your Ceph config file would be in there, right? In Proxmox, there's a shared file system. So that file is actually, Etsy PVE, and then et cetera, and then Ceph.config. So they're in two different places, but the directions for Ceph aren't going to let you know that that's different in Proxmox. So you kind of have to just fumble through and figure that stuff out. So, which is a big reason why we started coming up with our own documentation. So,
yeah,
yes, we didn't really have a choice, just had to figure it out.
Also, those Proxmox configuration files, since it is a shared system that you can't just go and edit them, there are things that you have to do to make that happen.
Correct. If you change a config file on one node, you're changing it on every node. So you have to be aware of that, like before you go just start making configuration changes.
You guys should just take your documentation and update the shared wiki.
I think Justin Scott at one point had mentioned doing something similar to that for Cold Fusion.
Yeah, there's probably some missing documentation there too. So yeah, it's interesting for those watching and who may know the different shows that we operate under the xByte family is that we're tied to smart communications in multiple ways. One from a technologies, from a hardware perspective, but also from a Cold Fusion perspective. All right, so guys, so you've been running it now. It sounds like you guys are confident in this one. Would you guys? I mean, I think we may have asked this a little bit in the beginning, but we're now kind of we've talked about all things going on in it and all the things you've had to learn, all the lessons, or some of the stuff. But would you guys make the same decision if you were in control? I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. I probably should have asked you. I probably should have told you I was going to ask this question when we first started, so you could prep for it. But
I would be happy with it. If it would have been up to us in the beginning, I think we would have made slightly different hardware choices. Like, so we were kind of stuck with what we had previously. But other than that, I don't think I would change much. The networking side of things, I probably would have a whole lot less fiber because it's just been a pain to deal with. And I would have a slightly newer hardware. But other than that, no, I don't think I would change anything.
You're like, no regrets going Ceph. You guys, like VMware, not VMware, not Hyper-V, any of the other guys out there.
No, it was fun. It was challenging, but it was fun.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, when Justin's talking about the fiber, just want to kind of touch on that. We've just found that we have so much fiber, and some of it was installed by the previous employee. And it was all tightly bound, and it's been there for a few years. So we just found that they're just very sensitive. You got to make sure everything's clean, and we just, even on our Zabbix monitors, we'll constantly see, oh, this one server, that fiber connection just keeps having issues. So we do set up everything redundant, so it's not a major problem, but it just seems, we haven't had a lot of experience with fiber just in these past few years on these projects. But yeah, we just find that the fiber connections are just very sensitive to dirt and bending, having the cable bent too much or things like that. Going back to your question though, Proxmox has been an interesting challenge in that there are times where I've gotten frustrated with it and have wondered, why are we using this? But the cool thing is, every single time we've figured out a solution. So there's been a couple of times where an entire node just isn't acting properly. It's like not responding, and it's being really weird. And we think we lost a VM. We're like, we don't even, like, it looks like that data is gone, but because of the way it's built, we've been able to recover our data 100% every time. So that's actually been a really good positive part of that. And we're learning, like, oh, when this happens, this is what you do. So yeah, I think we would do it again. But yeah, I would agree that the hardware, I would have tweaked a little bit.
Yeah, I think we hear that a lot with people on the hardware side of things is that if you're going to do a new project, to take a look at the hardware and say, hey, you know what? What is the ROI on purpose-built hardware for this project versus kind of making do with what we have? And it's something for the sysadmins out there to kind of take a look at, is to say, hey, yeah, you know what? It is a cost saving, but let's also think of the potential expense, the risks of using the old stuff. So yeah, it's interesting to hear you guys talk about that. And you're not even talking about brand spanking new stuff. You're just thinking, hey, you know what? Let's go 3 generations back. Let's not go to the 13th. Let's not go to the 13th gen. It's 630. Let's go 640s.
Yeah, as far as like the Dell PowerEdge, the hardware hasn't been an issue at all. It's been able to handle multiple VMs totally fine. Like I said before, the biggest issue is the disk I/O. So that's where, like, make sure you're buying good fast stuff, and maxing out. You know, if you have 10 bays, fill them up. 24 bays, put as many as you can there. So
yeah, that is something people don't look at. Oftentimes they look at just total storage, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll put a bunch of. You know what? It's cheaper for me to put a bunch of big drives in, so let's do that. And they're not thinking about the I/O side of they're missing by not spreading that out. And I've even done. There is a limitation though. We've actually benchmarked before where we kind of saturated it. Okay, at a certain point, there's not the return of adding more drives. And I forget what the point. I think it was like around 15 or 16. It was years ago when we did this. But for those listening, if you guys are going to be doing a big cluster and you want to do any benchmarking, let us know at xByte. We can definitely help you with that as well. So we can kind of do that as like a POC, so you guys can see, okay, hey, if I add new drives, what's my I/O look like, or my IOPS, and does it make sense? And we can kind of help you guys kind of do those comparisons about what's going to be your best bang for the buck. I don't want to make it a big commercial, but just so people know that there are options. Just because I know that's something that people, I don't want them to regret something and then realize, okay, hey, we could have actually done some testing, and I know we've even set up labs for people to do testing and stuff on.
Yeah, and then in the stack that we want to build out next, like I said, we were going to get some NVMEs to help with caching, to try and help with that.
Nice. All right. Any final thought? I mean, we've been talking about lessons learned, or any questions from Josh, Tyler, for these guys, and then we've had them for a while here, so I want to make sure I'm thankful to whoever their boss is for letting them join us today for such a lengthy period of time. But I know they have many things to be doing with their clusters. But any last questions, or Nicholas, Justin, any last lessons that we haven't covered?
I don't think so.
No? All right.
Yeah, the only, it is really easy to install Proxmox. Just throw it on a USB and boot up on it and install it. Like you said, so on most of our servers, it takes, I don't know, 10 minutes, maybe 15, something like that. But the 730s that have 24 drives, that would take, did it take like
to boot?
A day? No, to install.
No.
Basically.
No.
I wasn't involved on the 730s, but Justin, was that a full day for those two?
It was ridiculous. It's the very end of the installation process just takes forever on the 730s. I could not figure out why for the life of me. So I said, you know what, that's fine. We'll just wait. And it does finish. It finishes eventually. But I think at first when we originally had that problem, I believe we were running like a RAID Z2 or something. It wasn't correct. We ended up switching it up to a RAID 10. And I think it was a little faster after that swap. So I think it was just the way the data was being written to the drives. But yeah, it took a ridiculous amount of time. So
that's a good lesson. I mean, so far, my biggest takeaway that I've heard from you guys is to not mess with it. Let it do its thing. If it's failing, let it try and recover before you start tinkering. If it's taking forever to do the setup, you know what? Let it go. It will finish. Don't try and rush it, because you could definitely break it, but it will eventually get to even on the R6 or R730s. So guys, I know the community out there, you guys have a lot of great stories for everybody and great experiences. If someone's looking to kind of is also doing this and they want to kind of exchange war stories with you, is there a way that they can reach out?
Yeah, I can't guarantee we can get back to you quickly because we're not really customer facing, if you will. We're an internal team, so we can try and get back to you. But we have an email address for our team. It's sysops@smartcommunications.us.
All right. Thank you guys very much. You guys can share that, but it's good warning for everybody. I mean, I'm sure any of these are also internal teams, and they realize that, hey, everyone's got jobs. So if you're really questioning, then just be polite with it. These guys are not consultants, so there's no upside to them, or as far as a sale, as far as they talk to somebody. So they're just doing it because they love the community and out there. So, but guys, thank you very much, Nicholas, Justin. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a great conversation, and I hope it's kind of put some people's minds at ease with Proxmox, with Ceph, that they too can kind of get into this world if they have a team who can help them and get through it. So thank you guys very much. Tyler,
Thanks
Josh, thank
us.
you for joining us. And
Thanks,
everybody,
everyone.
cheers. Have a great day.
Thanks.